So, welcome, my friends. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Kendra Court. I'm a career strategist, career coach. I'm also an author. I wrote a book called The Thing You're Meant to Do. So, a lot of my work in this career strategy space, especially right now with AI, taking over a number of industries and jobs and roles. I think this work is even more important now than ever before, in terms of finding the thing that you're meant to do, finding the way in which you can contribute to the world, finding how you are aligned with your true self in your career so that you can really show up and be the best that you can be, however, whatever industry that is, whatever role that is. But it's really important that you're aligned with your true self in order to maximize your performance, in order to maximize your contribution, your output, but also your joy, right? And your fulfillment. And certainly, those terms, joy, fulfillment, were definitely not spoken about. I'm a Gen X. So that was certainly not spoken about, when um, I was coming up, in terms of career alignment. The approach to careers back then was really get something stable, right? Get something stable and good paying job, stability. Those were the words that were thrown around. And so I think what's happened is now we have this whole cohort of folks, high achievers, who are feeling really stuck and they don't know why, because they either followed the right path, they got the good job, and it's like, why am I feeling this way? So let's dive in. This is what we're going to cover tonight. This is the agenda. So really, the reason that you're feeling stuck in your career, what's happened to kind of get you to this point, the three career archetypes. So which one actually resonates for you most? Which one defines your journey? We're going to cover that. And then how to pivot effectively, right? Nobody's saying you have to blow up your life. You don't have to quit tomorrow. But I am going to give you a way to pivot effectively without burning it all down, so to speak. And then I've got some real client testimonial stories. These are translatable shifts that have actually happened, with my clients, and sort of highlighting those shifts, right? Because I think probably what's got you here is you've built something real, right? You're capable, you're probably accomplished, maybe you're trusted in your space, whatever industry or role that you're in. So why doesn't it feel better? Right, is often the question I hear, right? Why does it feel hollow, or why does it feel empty or wrong, or why am I burning out, right? Why do I keep getting stuck or running into, bad bosses or bad cultures or whatever the case may be? So tonight we're going to name what's actually happening. We're going to name what's actually going on. And then I'm going to give you a very clear way forward. Okay, so that's what we're up to tonight. And then I'll leave time at the end for questions. So here's the paradox of high achievers, right? There's this paradox because as high achievers, we have an incredible pain tolerance, right? We have an incredible capacity to overwork, overfunction. We can be exceptionally good at things that really don't energize us, but we can keep going, right? We can keep plugging away. I mean, how many of you have been in a job where you're like, I don't love this, but like you keep showing up and you keep doing the work, right? So maybe it's that you climbed a ladder that you didn't choose. Maybe you're succeeding at work that's costing you vital energy because it's not actually congruent with who you are. And that's really the paradox, is that as high achievers, we can be pretty good, often exceptionally good at things that don't energize us back. So then we get into those grind situations and those burnout situations. And I mean, the hidden cost, it's not so hidden really, because, success at the expense of alignment is this quiet drain. So it's this constant hum or this constant, questioning, whispering to yourself, you know, am I in the right place? Why do I hate Sundays and get nervous and scared or anxious or stressed out about Sundays because I've got to go do it all again on Monday? Right? And so there's this cumulative cost to that, right? If you keep going in and keep working in a space that doesn't give you vital energy back. Because at the end of the day, our work can be energizing when it's aligned with who we are, right? So there is this hidden cost, right, to success if it's at the expense of your alignment and your long-term fulfillment, right? So your vitality, your creativity, your long-term fulfillment will suffer if you're out of alignment. And that's really the crux of it for my clients when they come to me. They've been experiencing that, right? They're burning out, or they're really drained, they're frustrated, or maybe they're worried that they're wasting their potential, right? They're wasting their talents and their skills, right? They're made for more. They know they're made for more, but they just are either in the wrong place, doing the wrong thing. But there's that misalignment, and there is a cost to that misalignment. So um this idea of misalignment, it's not burnout from working too hard. So there's a lot of talk right now in the coaching space, in the self-development space, around burnout. And what I'm talking about is, it's not the burnout from working too hard, right? If you just grind it out, and that in your 20s and 30s you sort of have to just show up and put in the time, right? Put in the work. That's not the kind of that's not what I'm talking about with the burnout that comes from misalignment, right? The burnout that comes from misalignment, it's not this lack of ambition, it's not from working too hard. It's from that drain. That work that's misaligned with you costs you energy, right? So it costs you energy rather than energizing you. And Gay Hendricks talks about this in his book. And there's the zone of excellence, and then there's the zone of genius. And a lot of us build our careers in the zone of excellence, and we can do it quite well, right? We're capable, we're talented, we're accomplished, we can work hard, we can show up. But if it's not our zone of genius, then it's not actually going to be energizing. It's going to be draining. There's still going to be this element of it being really hard and really draining. And that's not because you lack talent or ambition, and it's certainly not because you're, ungrateful or greedy. It's that the reality of misalignment is that it will burn you out, right? There is a cost to staying in a space that is not who you are, and not doesn't highlight your strengths. And so what does, staying stuck cost you in the end, right? And um it's really a number of things, right? You didn't fail, you just outgrew the situation that you're in. Either you've outgrown the work itself. I talk about my brother a little bit in the book. He's in the digital or tech space. He's a CTO now, but he loves to code. Like nothing excites him more than just kind of getting into a zone and coding. And my sister-in-law, like 2, 3, 4 in the morning, he'll be like, she'll say, come to bed, like, for God's sakes, you're still doing that. And for me, that just sounds like an absolute nightmare, like being alone with my computer and coding. Like, that's his dream, that's his happy place. For me, that would be an absolute nightmare, right? I'm a people person. I love to help people, I love to develop relationships, I love to connect with people. And so being misaligned in the actual work that you're doing can be one way that you're stuck, right? The other way is to be incongruent with who you are, right? And so if you're in a space where the values don't line up for you anymore, right? I started my career in the pharmaceutical industry, and the values that I had at the time lined up with that industry. And as I grew and as I changed and evolved, that industry no longer fit for me, right? And so there was that incongruence with my values, my beliefs, and so therefore then that environment no longer suited me and who I am. And so staying stuck in environments where you're either misaligned with the work itself, right? Like my coder versus, extrovert example. Like if you're an extrovert and you're stuck in a role where it's very isolated, or there isn't opportunity for team cohesion or chemistry, and it's quite lonely, maybe you're an individual contributor, you're not even on a team, then that's going to be a quiet drain. That's going to be really draining to you as an extrovert who gets juiced by interaction with people, right? By connection, by team dynamics. Similarly, right, if you're an introverted person and you'd really love to just be at working from home in an administrative type role, but you're on the front lines, being put into like a more of a business development type role, and you're being forced into a situation where you're having to be super social and extroverted, then that's also going to be draining as well. So you can see how being misaligned with the work itself can be really draining, but also being incongruent with the environment that you're in. Your values, your beliefs change and shift and grow over time. So it stands to reason that by the time you get to about mid-career, that some of those values and beliefs have shifted, and maybe the environment that you're in no longer suits you. And so it's not about, you did something wrong, you made the wrong choice. Like, don't, beat yourself up about it. You didn't fail, you've outgrown it, right? You've either outgrown the work or you've outgrown the environment. But either way, staying stuck staying stuck in that environment or in that work that's misaligned, it will cost you, right? So, how does it cost you? Well, it costs you in missed opportunities. Like if you keep staying stuck, then you're, in a thing out of fear, or, fear of change, fear of failure, all of the fears, right? Or, sense of obligation, sense of responsibility. I can't possibly change, right? Well, then you're going to miss out on opportunities, right? An income plateau often happens. I often hear that from my clients. They leave money on the table, right, when they stay stuck in a situation that's no longer serving them. So, for an example, I've got a client right now who's underemployed. She knows she is. She's not living up to her potential. She's in a situation where they've got her pigeonholed, doing a job that she can do with her eyes closed and her hands tied behind her back. And she hates it because she wants to lean into leadership. She wants more opportunity, right? And so she also knows that her income has plateaued, and she knows that she's leaving money on the table because she's under employed and relative to her capabilities. Right. So she knows she's capable of more. She knows she's made for more, but she's stuck in this situation where she's earning less than what she knows she's capable of. And so that income plateau happens if you continue to stay stuck, right? You're leaving money on the table. It can also cost you in physical health, mental health, right? Exhaustion, anxiety, depression. It can cost you in relationships. There's often a relationship impact to these things, right? Whether it's distance between you and your partner because you're crabby and shitty and coming home feeling, awful. Um, and then that distance grows, and then burnout can happen, right? And so there's this physical health toll and this relationship impact that can also happen, right? And then there's this gradual identity erosion as well. So the longer you live out of alignment with who you are, the harder it gets to remember who you actually are. So it erodes your identity. And I'll give you an example of that. I've got a client that I spoke to her this morning, and she's been complaining about this situation that she's in for a few months now. And she was on the cusp of making a big change. And then her identity wasn't quite up to speed with it. And so now it's almost like a turtle in a shell, right? So she'd poked her head out and she'd looked around, right? We got her excited and juiced about doing work that aligns with who she really is and actually contributing to the organization in a more meaningful way. And then she's almost like turtled back into her shell now because she's scared and because her identity does not align with that of a woman who's doing this elevated thing. So she literally said to me today, she's like, Kendra, I think I'm good to just stay. Like the discomfort that she's in is like the devil she knows, right? So it's like the devil is often not better, but easier to handle because you know it versus the devil you don't. And so we talked a lot about identity today because these situations where you're stuck and you're not living up to your potential and you're misaligned, it erodes your identity. And it's almost like then you don't believe that you can. And that was our conversation today. Our coaching conversation was that she doesn't believe she can, and she doesn't believe she's worthy of it. Right. And so there's some identity work that has to happen there. All of this to say, staying stuck costs you. So it's either going to cost you financially or it's going to cost you in physical health, mental health, a relationship, or your own personal identity. Either way, staying stuck is going to cost you. Before we move on, does this resonate? Just thumb up or pop a heart in the chat. But does this resonate for you in terms of where you're at? Are you feeling like staying stuck is costing you something? Like, is it costing you your sanity? Are you, do you get the Sunday scaries or that Monday dread, right? Is something like that going on where, you're really starting to feel it physically, right? I've got a few clients who, um, aches and pains and headaches, and it's really starting to get to them physically as well. So, is any of that happening? Yeah. Okay. So, next, I want to do a quick self assessment so that we find out where you are, your current, um, identifying where you are is like the first step, right? To claiming that new direction. And there's three archetypes of how you can be stuck at this mid-career point. If you want to do the actual full assessment, it's on my website, kendracourt.com, and there's an actual quiz that you can do, and you'll get a full printout with the details. But we're going to do just a kind of a quick self-assessment today. But if you did want to do the full thing, it lives on my website, kendracourt.com. So the first archetype, so I said there's three. The first archetype is the wrong ladder climber, right? So this is someone who maybe it was societal influence or family pressure or external validation drove them to get onto a particular ladder. It certainly was an inner alignment, right? When you get onto the wrong ladder, it's usually because it's stable, right? It's a good career, right? Maybe you're guidance counselor or, professors in college or whoever. Maybe you just know that being an accountant, an engineer, a lawyer, a doctor is like a good, stable career, and that's what you should go into, right? Regardless of how you got on the ladder, you've climbed the ladder, but it was the wrong ladder for you, right? And so if you're feeling like you're misaligned with the work you're doing, right? You climbed someone else's ladder, basically. And it's like if you've reached the top and it feels hollow or it feels empty, right? Maybe you got into project management and you did all the certifications and you've worked your way up within an organization, but you're looking around and you're like, it feels empty. I don't feel like I thought I should feel, right? I checked the boxes. That's another one I hear a lot. Like, I checked the boxes. I did everything right. Why doesn't it feel better? Right? Why does it feel like why I'm successful on paper? Why don't I feel that way? Right? It's because you're on the wrong ladder, right? You climbed it, you climbed the ladder, but it was the wrong ladder, right? Or it was leaning against the wrong house, whatever analogy you want to do. But you've climbed the ladder, but it was someone else's vision. It was someone else's um, idea of success, right? And so this particular archetype, um, so my client Rock, he was 25 years as a corporate client and successful by every measure, right? You know, checked the boxes, worked his way up, got the good job, became the lawyer, and he never questioned, his career because it was sort of alluded to him that becoming a lawyer, it was, stable and good pay and trajectory and all of the things. And when he came to me, he said, before I run out of pages in the book, I want to make those years count. Like the years I have left, I really want to make them count before I run out of pages. And for him, being a lawyer, he realized was not his dream, it was his dad's dream, right? His dad had planted the seed for him that he should become a lawyer and that was the thing that he should do, and it would provide for his family financial security and prestige, right? He would be known in the community, and there's a certain level of prestige that comes along with that career. And so successful by all measures, except he was doing the whole thing without passion, right? He realizes that now, but he didn't have passion for it. He was just going in and doing it. And I truly believe that when you're aligned with who you are and you're doing the work that is aligned with your true self, that you feel that sense of passion, you feel that sense of fulfillment, joy, right? You have a sense of peace and a sense of contentment because you're actually doing work that aligns for you. So this is the archetype of the wrong ladder climber, right? You got into a profession, again, maybe it was because of societal influence or family pressure. Regardless, um, you were on the wrong ladder and now you've realized you're on the wrong ladder and it's costing you. It's either costing you with burnout or exhaustion or some physical ailments. Something's happening. Maybe it's even just you hate going into work, right? So that's the wrong ladder climber. Next is the sidelined high performer. So this person is capable, but they're almost invisible to leadership or to upward mobility. They've been passed over, a number of times. They've been dismissed. Maybe they're being underutilized. And so they start to sort of think, well, I feel like I'm made for more, but am I really made for more? Because I'm not getting the opportunities, or people don't see it in me, or I've got a gal right now who's been passed over for promotion several times, and now she's being taken advantage of, right? Because they've got her in this role that she's very good at. She can do it with her eyes closed, and so they're loading her up, right? Which is really convenient for everybody else. It's not convenient for her, super convenient for everybody else, right? So she is working herself to the bone, trying to be seen, right? putting her hand up and trying to get noticed so that she can be promoted. Um, but she's stuck. She's really stuck. And she's been passed over, as I said, and feeling underutilized. And there's this real gap, and the human potential, right, is the gap between, where you are and what you know you're capable of. And if that gap exists for too long or it's too big, it really starts to weigh on you, right? Because the version of yourself that is doing what you're truly capable of and living up to your potential, that version is out there. But the sidelined high performer has either had a bad boss or a toxic work culture, or something happened. Maybe they spoke up and now they're being punished for it, or something's happened and they've been thrown off course, right? So they've been sidelined and they're sick of it, right? They're sick of being dismissed. They're sick of being underutilized, right? And so I have a client, Lorraine, who's been in operations for 25 years. She's built departments, led teams. And about 10 years ago, something happened, which I can't share, but something happened in her career and she got sidelined. So she kind of got like shoved in a corner. They gave her a bit of a senior title, but at this point she's just processing tickets. All right. She's like a glorified, um ticket ticket taker. um, and what we've uncovered recently, there's a lot of grief, right, for her, because she has been passed over and she's realizing now that she's wasted this 10 years, right? There was this 10 years and she feels like it's a waste because she wasn't able to reach her potential in that time, right? She's starting to move toward what she deserves now, and she's making real shifts and upgrading her identity and really stepping into the woman that she can be. Um, but it was years of discouragement and years of frustration and resentment, real resentment, that she was being underutilized, and anger and frustration. And so the sidelined high performer, it's like if you know that you are capable of something, but you're not being given the opportunity, that can be excruciating. So that's the second archetype. And the third is the zigzagger. Now, that was my story. I was a zigzagger. I spent 20 years trying to find my thing, which is why I ended up writing the book, The Thing You're Meant to Do, because for 20 years, I zigzagged. I tried a whole bunch of different things trying to find my thing. And I was getting really anxious, and I felt a lot of shame that my counterparts seemed to have figured it out, right? And my friends and my former colleagues were collecting titles and moving their way up and really establishing themselves and creating these big, bold careers. And for me, I mean, I was just trying everything to find my thing. And it seemed like each place that I moved to, it wasn't quite right. Like it looked good and at first, and then I got in after a year or two. It was like, no, this is not my thing. Um, it's not to say that I wasn't, decent at that thing. I was quite good at a lot of different things, but I never found my thing. And so I started to believe I was like flaky or there was something wrong with me because I couldn't just like stick to something, right? Like, why can't you just stick with it? Was sort of the thought there. Um, and that was really excruciating for a number of reasons. Um, because I knew that I was capable of more. I knew that I was made for more, but I couldn't figure out what that was. I didn't know what that was for me. And so I kept zigzagging, right? Lateral move, another lateral move, different industry, different role, different career entirely, many times, all in an effort to find my thing because I knew it was out there. It felt elusive. Often it felt elusive, but I knew there had to be something out there that was going to align with who I was, with my skills, with my talents, with who I am, my personality. I just knew there had to be something out there that was going to be a better fit. I just didn't know how to find it. So, which one resonates the most for you? Those are the three archetypes. So, we've got the zigzagger, we've got the sidelined high performer, and the wrong ladder climber. Do any of those resonate for you, or maybe which one resonates for you? You can just maybe pop a note in the chat. Um, but it's really interesting because these different archetypes, regardless of which stream you came through, right? Whether you were a zigzagger, whether you got sidelined, whether you were on the wrong ladder, the net result is the same, which is that you're feeling stuck. You're feeling unfulfilled by your career. You're feeling like you are made for more, right? Yeah, the zigzagger, Kimmy. I get it. I was a zigzagger. Um, so regardless though of how you got to this point, it regardless of which of those paths you took, and it could be a combination of a couple of them, right? I've got a couple of clients who they're on the wrong ladder and got sidelined, right? I've got a client that's been, zigzagging, and then picked something and climbed that ladder only to find out it was the wrong thing. And so zigzagger and a wrong ladder climber. Doesn't matter really how you got here. The point is that it feels awful. It feels awful to feel stuck in your career, to feel like, again, you're made for more. You don't know how to get to that more place. You don't even know what more looks like. That was me for many years. I'm like, well, shoot, this is not it, but what is it, right? It's not like I wasn't exposed to many different careers. So, and the stuckness, as we talked about, it's costing you. It's costing you something. So, how do you pivot from here and get unstuck? That's the $1,000,000 question. But how do you get unstuck without blowing it all up, right? Like I'm by no means telling you to burn it to the ground or blow your life up today. Um, but there is a way to pivot strategically, and there's a way to do this where you're not blowing up your life. So let's take a look at that. So the four pillars here: tune in, get clarity, take courage, and visibility. That maps to the modules in the way that I coach, right? My framework for my coaching practice. I don't start with visibility. Visibility might, in your world, might mean your narrative, your resume, even your LinkedIn profile. Like, how are you being seen, right? What's the narrative of your work experience, or all of those sorts of things. Some career coaches start there with that visibility piece. Like, if we could just get your resume brushed up, or if we could just get your LinkedIn profile brushed up, then you would have direction, right? And it's just not simply not the case. We have to go back to the beginning and get inner wisdom activation. So what signals have you been ignoring? So tuning into yourself and listening to your inner wisdom, right? So whether you call that intuition, whether you call it listening to your gut, whatever resonates for you, but your inner knowing, your inner wisdom, it's not wrong, right? So if you have a dream about something, like if it's coming to you that you really need to be an astronaut, I'm making this up, but if it comes to you, it's coming to you for a reason. I'm not getting that signal to become an astronaut, right? I'm getting other signals that I need to listen to. But if a signal is coming to you, it's coming to you for a reason. Now, we often ignore those subtle signals, right? The whispers. We often ignore them because it's easier, it's safer, right? In terms of, as humans, we default to the path of least resistance, and we default to psychological safety and nervous system stability. And so when these signals come, oh, you should really be an astronaut. If that signal is coming to you, there's all these other mechanisms, physiological mechanisms and psychological mechanisms that are going to um, poo poo that idea, right? Whether it's your inner critic telling you can't possibly do that. Who are you to want that dream? Who are you to think that you can do that, right? All of those inner critic type signals. There's that psychological safety piece, right? Like it kind of, your brain can't determine the difference between a real or an imagined threat. And so changing careers feels like a real threat. And your brain doesn't know the difference between that and you getting chased by a saber-toothed tiger or something. So if your brain thinks that you're getting chased by a saber-toothed tiger, then you're not safe, right? You go into fight or flight mode, your nervous system activates, cortisol goes up, all of the things. And so your brain then is not able to feel safe and is not able to vision that future state self, right? And so sometimes these signals get missed. Sometimes they're so quiet we can't hear them. And so when I say tune in, I mean get quiet. Get quiet. However that looks for you. I love to meditate, so for me that looks like meditation. For some of my clients it looks like box breathing or journaling, being contemplative, but sitting quietly and really tuning in to your own inner wisdom and what signals have you been ignoring. Then it's about getting clarity. And the framework that I use for getting clarity, it's almost like a Venn, it is a Venn diagram. And so we look at, what are you passionate about? What energizes you? What lights you up? Like, is there a particular problem that you want to solve, right? Like, did you have a childhood illness and you beat it? And now I have a client like this. She had rheumatoid arthritis, RA, in her hands very badly in her 20s. And she beat it. She's cured, she's symptom free, but that's an area of real interest for her. She wants to solve a problem around that. So is there a question that you want to answer? Is there like a burning desire that there's this problem that you want to solve, right? I mean, is it the climate crisis? Is it, you know, there's a particular lizard in Africa that if we save this lizard, it's going to turn global warming around. I don't know. But what are you passionate about? Right? What energizes you? Is it a particular problem to solve or a particular niche area of study? And then it's purpose, right? And that's like why you exist. The Buddhists have a concept called dharma. It doesn't translate really well into English, but the point of dharma is it's very closely tied to the right path, and there is a right path for all of us. And in terms of how we can contribute to the world, right? How do we show up and contribute to the world to the best of our abilities when we're aligned with our dharma or with our purpose? It's like abundance will flow and prosperity and joy and all of those things. So really honing in on why you're here. What is your purpose? Then we look at the practicalities of it, and we get clarity on what you bring to the table, right? What skills do you have, talents, strengths, all of that. And then we look at the market demand. So, what does the world need right now? And, what can you get paid for? And then we look at the intersection of all of that. There's like a sweet spot, a career sweet spot for you. I call it the thing you're meant to do, but it's not a job title necessarily. So, at the intersection of your passions, your purpose, your skills and talents, and this feasibility piece, this market demand piece, the intersection of those four concepts is the thing you're meant to do. And again, it's not a job title per se. It could be a problem that you are wanting to solve. And the way you solve that problem is by creating a portfolio career, right? Maybe you write a journal article about it and you get some advocates and some champions around it, and you discover that you can solve this problem by creating an app, right? And so now the thing you're meant to do is solving this problem. The way that you're doing it is through thought leadership and this digital product that you have, and you kind of bring all that together to solve this particular problem, or answer this particular question. But getting clarity on that is the next step on how to pivot. Then it's about the courage, right? I mean, the pivot doesn't have to be dramatic right away. It can be small experiments, right? It can be dipping your toe in the water. Maybe you volunteer. I've got a client right now who wants to get into the literary space, and she doesn't want to be a traditional publisher, but she wants to be adjacent to books and literary agents and editors and so on. And so she's volunteering in a few different capacities so that she can get more knowledge and she can get a better understanding of the industry, and then where she can slot herself in, right? And so taking courage, or really building up that courage muscle, and taking action, finding ways, right, for you to get some experience, or find some entry points, but really small little experiments that are going to move you forward and signal that you're taking action, right? Aligned action. And again, it doesn't have to be dramatic. I'm not telling you to go blow up your life and quit your job tomorrow, but it is about aligned action. It's about taking that courage and taking a step, any kind of step. Reach out to somebody on LinkedIn. Hey, I saw that you are really involved in AI ethics, and I'd really love to be involved in AI ethics. Like, I think the AI movement is wonderful, but I really want to make sure that we have checks and balances around it. Can you and I chat and have a 10-minute Zoom chat about that? Right? So any little movement, any little way that you can take courage and move yourself forward. And then lastly, this last pillar is around visibility. And that's when it comes together in terms of owning your story, right? So you've tuned in, you know what you want, you know who you are, you've gotten clarity on how you're supposed to show up in the world, right? You've gotten clarity around what you're supposed to do to live up to your potential and be aligned with your true self. You've started to take some action, and now you can really craft that story so that the right people see it, so that the right people find you. And I call that external coherence, right? It's when your inner world, right? Who you are, what you want, what you have to bring to the table, when that inner wisdom or that internal world matches the signal that you're putting out into the world. And then the right people will find you. The right people will see it. So that's how you make an intentional pivot without, like I said, blowing up your life. Um, and so the framework then kind of builds from that, right? So this inner wisdom activation, this career sweet spot, finding that intersection, taking the action, right? Coming up with that action plan, the strategic wins, those small shifts, those ways, and then this brand piece at the end, right? So redefining your story, reinventing the narrative, and really making that strong and tight so that the right people find you, right? So that your next chapter is the best one yet. And I do this in our 12-week program called From Stuck to Success. Um, it's a career reinvention. It's again, it's not about quitting tomorrow and blowing up your life, but it is about getting more aligned with who you are and getting unstuck so that you're doing work that's meaningful and fulfilling and brings you joy. And so here are just some client, I kind of alluded to them when we were doing the archetypes. Um, Rock went from a legal career, he was a lawyer, and now he's got a startup doing some consulting that really energizes him. My client Dean was in pharma, the pharmaceutical industry, leadership. He's done a pivot into construction and really feeling joyful and feeling aligned. He got into pharma by accident. He talks about kind of falling into pharma um, uh, because it was sexy and a good job and lucrative. um and wasn't super intentional about his path. He did well. He's a wrong ladder climber, so he got into pharma and then did well, and so he got the promotions, right? So it was just like he promotion, upward mobility, kind of just, it just sort of happened. And it wasn't until he was kind of had a forced early retirement last year that he really got this kind of clarity, right? We did the tune in and the clarity, and what he discovered about his sweet spot is that he actually wanted to be doing more work with his hands, something more tangible, something that produced something. um Lorraine, our sidelined high performer in the operations space, we're actively building her next chapter. But the shifts that she's made in terms of that identity elevation and really stepping into that new identity of the woman that's aligned with herself. We also had to break down some limiting beliefs because you know, and this might be true for you, and then I'm going to stop and answer questions. But, I think a lot of times there's these underlying beliefs, especially for those of us that sort of grew up in the 70s and 80s, that work wasn't meant to be fun, right? Work's a four-letter word. I mean, that was the message I got, that you just pick something, like just get a job, right? Get a job and work hard and do well and show up, and success will follow. But like, it's not meant to be fun, right? It's not meant to be joyful. And so for Lorraine, there was actually some of those limiting beliefs on living under the surface that we had to excavate and get to the bottom of. Because if you don't truly believe that work can be joyful and fun, well, guess what, right? It's not going to be. You're not going to find work that's joyful and fun if you don't believe that you deserve it or that it's available to you. And then lastly, Kristen, oh my gosh, what an incredible pivot she made. So she was a corporate project manager for 15 years and real male dominated industry. Um, she also got sidelined. I would argue she was a wrong ladder climber that got sidelined. So, male dominated industry. She was the only female on the leadership team. And what ended up happening for her was she had a belief in her head, probably from childhood, that art, her creative outlets, were not real jobs. And so, um, when we started working together, we did that inner wisdom work. We got the clarity. The clarity for her was she needed to be doing something creative. She needed to be tapping into her creative outlet, and for her, that was art. And she was really nervous to do it because, again, the good girl doesn't do art as a career. The good girl is a corporate project manager climbing the ladder and doing well. And when she aligned, um, with her true self, she was so scared to do this, but I had her put one of her pieces up just on Instagram, no, nothing crazy. Um, and within a few hours, she got asked to do a commission piece. So, and she's been getting signals now from the universe for the last few months that this is the right path for her and this is what she's really meant to do. But the hurdle or the roadblock that she had to overcome was that she didn't believe being an artist was a real career, or it wasn't legitimate. That was the message for her growing up, was that that wasn't a legitimate career. So once we sort of broke down those limiting beliefs and got her the clarity and she got aligned with her inner wisdom, I mean, the sky's the limit for her in terms of where she's going to take her career. I mean, she's already got a commission piece. She's applying for a gallery to have a piece in a gallery, and so I show this chart just so that you can actually see the client movement. Some of my clients uh, leave corporate to do something else. Some go back to corporate. I've got a gal who's been an entrepreneur for years because her parents were entrepreneurs. And so for her, she thought, well, that was the sort of most logical path. She became an entrepreneur and she's currently applying at a bank to be back in the corporate world because she does want some stability. She's had too many years of feast or famine and disruption, and so, what she knows about herself right now for her nervous system, for her sanity, for her mental health, she needs to be in a structured environment that's going to give her safety and stability. And so, she's moving back into corporate. So, all this to say, the shifts are individual, they're very personal. My clients make all kinds of shifts and pivots, but we do it strategically, we do it safely, and I'm really not here to blow up your life. What I am here to do is inspire you and empower you to do the thing that you're meant to do. So, without further ado, I will invite questions. I would love to chat with you further. The next step for us, if you would like to chat further, is to book a clarity call. You can do that on my website, kendracourt.com. And what we'll talk about on that call is your specific archetype, where you're stuck, what's not working, and what's actually calling you forward. And it's really an honest conversation to get you a game plan. I do have the 12-week program. It might not be the right fit for you. I have other ways. There's other lower entry points into my work. Obviously, you can buy the book, and that has a workbook attached. So it's quite a DIY situation. I also work with clients one-to-one as well. But the next step would be to book one of these clarity calls, and we'll chat live about what's not working, what is working, and really, where you want to go and what you want from your career so that this last chapter can be the best one yet. So thank you so much for joining me. I will stick around for questions if anybody has them. I'm happy to chat and answer questions. Or, like I said, feel free to book a call. You can do that, on my website. That's the easiest way to take a further deeper dive into your situation, what's not working for you, I find it really helpful to even just have that accountability, right? Somebody that is holding that space for you to even consider some of these questions. I think a lot of people don't give themselves permission, um, especially if we're in our 40s and 50s. You know, we've got obligations, we've got responsibilities. So it's almost like we don't give ourselves permission. I heard a client say that to me last year. In our clarity call, I asked her what she wanted. I said, "What would make you happy?" And she's like, "God, I haven't asked myself that in years because I haven't even given myself permission." Oh, you're so welcome. You're most welcome. It was my pleasure. Thank you for coming. Please feel free to book a call, or you can follow me, Instagram, LinkedIn. Um, I'm in all the places. So feel free to follow me. Um, if you want to start with the book, you can start there, or you want to have one of those free clarity calls. I'm absolutely open and happy to chat and go from there. So thank you again for joining me. It was such a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you all in the future.